Welcome to the Inside Out Money Podcast.
Can't even recognize this place. Too many pieces of our past mistakes.
Hi, I'm Maggie, and I believe real change starts from the inside out. So let's work together to improve our money and our lives from the inside out. We will explore all things money and our relationship with it. Join me each week with a rotating set of co-hosts, friends, and interviews. Let's jump in.
It's time, we going round and round and round and round.
Hey, Liz.
Hi, Maggie.
Okay, for those of you who are like, what's happening? Where am I? Welcome to Inside Out Money. This is a personal finance podcast focused on redefining wealth from the inside out.
Inside out.
Inside out. Every week, I speak with a rotating set of co-hosts about a different financial topic, hopefully something to help you improve your financial mindset and tactics. Today, we have co-host Liz here. And by here, I mean here, which we'll get back to. And we are going to be talking.
Like we could almost touch each other.
We could, if you...
A little far.
We are going to be talking... We're like Emily Post today. Do you know who Emily Post is?
Yes, but I prefer Miss Manners.
Okay, Miss Manners. And we're going to talk about our take on some financial etiquette in some like what can sometimes be sticky or tricky financial situations in life, at work, with friends, with family, borrowing stuff, just lots of different things.
Like the restaurant tab, vacation.
Yeah, we're going to cover like pretty much, no, I don't want to say every situation you could ever run into, but we're going to cover enough of them that we feel like this will give you some guidance and some perspectives on what to do when you deal with some like financial etiquette questions.
Stickiness. You're going to have some opinions about this episode.
We're going to have some opinions.
Yeah.
But before we jump in,
back
to being able to touch each other.
I know.
For the first time ever, we're almost 100 episodes in to this podcast. This is actually 99.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
This is 99.
99 episodes. Da-na-na.
99 bottles of beer on the wall.
Yeah.
That's what it makes me think of.
I got 99 episodes and this is one.
99 episodes of the podcast so far. Take one down, pass it around.
Then we'll be on 100.
Oh, sorry. I thought we were working our way down. And then on each one, we'll say what the episode title was. Oh, we'll do a whole episode where all we do is count down from 100 and say 99 episodes.
Yeah,
podcast.
we sing the whole song.
99 was about financial etiquette. Take one down, pass it around. 98 was all about AI.
Exactly.
And then we like work our way backwards. Okay, listen. Yeah. Things are going to get a little rowdy because this is the first time we've been in the same room.
Yes.
We have our own...
It's the first time you and I have been in the same room recording a podcast. It's not the first time we've been in the same room.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, second time we've seen each other. Not the second time.
Second time we've like met up.
Second time we've like met up to come visit. I visited you once. You're visiting us in Atlanta. We had our first ever Inside Out Money meetup yesterday.
Yep.
So Sunday afternoon, Saturday afternoon, we had a meetup.
It was so fun. I feel like my
really
voice sounds a little tired because I was talking nonstop.
My voice was really rough last night. I am refreshed. I'm feeling good
nice.
now, but it was like I couldn't talk last night.
I was just so excited. I feel like everyone I was talking to, I kept saying, I'm sorry, I'm talking your ear off. I'm just like so excited.
It was
to
a
talk
really
to you.
fun bunch. Like
fun.
A huge thank you to everybody who was in Atlanta. One person, shout out to Jack or Jacqueline.
Yeah.
She drove 3 hours.
I didn't know that until after we left. That's
really?
Incredible.
When she told me that, I knew it when she was there because we were talking about, shout out to Vidalia. Yeah. She's from Vidalia and...
I just didn't know how far away that was.
Oh, I had to ask her. I wasn't really sure. And I was like, well, I feel such pressure to perform and like I told her, I feel so much pressure. I was like, can I get you something? Can I, can I get you a drink?
Have a seat. We'll rub your shoulders. Right. We'll bring you.
I mean, when she left, I was like, are you driving home now? And she's like, yeah. I go, do you want like some protein bars? Do you want like a snack for the, she's like, I've got some snacks for the road. And I was like,
good.
okay.
Good. I know, she was so nice. I'm so glad she came.
Yeah, so everybody was lovely.
Yeah.
And just a big shout out to I was just more calling out who drove the farthest to get there.
Yes.
And Steven also came from Camp Phi. He drove an hour and a half to get there.
I was so excited to meet him.
Yeah, it was good to see him.
Each person, okay, not to brag, but every single person was so smart and interesting and cool and funny.
Yeah.
And
Why is that bragging?
Because like we're so cool, we attract this like cool.
Sorry, I was like, I feel like you're bragging on them. Like that's nice.
I know, but every single we were there for I think 3 hours.
Yeah,
and it felt like
3.5. Really,
flew
we
by.
had to kind of like make people, not make people, but we were like, I'm really hungry. I have to leave and be sad now.
But it was like.
Yeah,
every conversation I wanted to be like, oh, I kind of wish you were the only person here so I could just sit down and only talk to you for 3 hours.
Yeah.
It was an embarrassment of riches, I guess. That's what I want to say.
It was really nice. Yeah, no, we really appreciate everyone coming out. Andrew was there. Liz's partner was there. My husband Greg was there. Andrew was there. We shout out to Erica. She's in Portland.
Yeah, I know. Erica, we missed you.
Couldn't make it. And yeah, but it was just like it was nice.
The best. I had so much fun.
Yeah, we gave out a lot of stickers and hugs and
stickers and hugs and beer. Also, there were 2 dogs that came. Shout out to Hansel and Talia. Talia was so soft.
They were both sweet. I had met Hansel multiple other times, but they're both sweet dogs.
I liked Hansel. Hansel was very friendly and cuddly, and Talia was also so sweet. But Talia was so soft, I couldn't get over it.
Yeah, I don't think I recognized how soft Talia was. I just didn't like. I did pet Talia. I just didn't appreciate it.
2 other people were trying to adopt a dog that day.
I know they went to Lifeline. There might be a new Inside Out doggy
right now. I know because they went to get a dog that morning, and then the dog was already adopted, and they were going from the meetup to try again.
Yeah, I told them. I go, we're like a few minutes from Lifeline, where we were in Chambly. Was I was like, Greg volunteers there, and it's like right down the road. And so they were like, "Oh, we're gonna go," and they was open for like another hour, so they went. I
told them that if they adopted a dog after the meetup, they had to name it Liz or Greg or Maggie or Andrew or Erica.
Maggie's a very popular dog name.
It is a popular dog.
They'd probably go with Maggie, honestly, not because I'm like so great, because it's a great dog name.
It is a good dog name.
Growing up, I knew a lot of people with dogs named Maggie.
I think Liz is a delightful name for a dog.
Yeah, look, etiquette-wise, I shouldn't imply my name is a better dog name. I was more just trying to bring us back to the etiquette topic.
Yeah.
Of financial etiquette. So,
anyways,
the point is, we had an
could
awesome
talk
meetup yesterday, and Liz is in Atlanta. Those are the 2 things you need to know.
I'm so happy right now. I'm sitting on Maggie's couch. We're recording. She just made me a delicious breakfast.
Yeah. Greg made you a nice cup of tea.
I know. I'm sitting under a little cozy blanket.
Yeah.
I could be here forever. Yeah. I live here now.
Okay. Speaking of living with friends, you guys, I think everybody remembers that Friends episode.
Good segue.
Where Phoebe and Joey and Rachel, who did not have they didn't make as much money as the other 3. Who had higher paying jobs, they were like kept ending up in these situations where they were all going out to dinner and they were ordering like a side salad and water because they had no money. And then somehow the bill was getting split like 6 ways. And they were like trying to speak up about it. And I guess eventually, I don't even remember how it like
I don't want to spoil the episode for you. That was on TV 20 years ago.
You could we'll put a link in YouTube because I know there's a ton of clips to that specific scene and episode on YouTube. And anyways, but that's like a common situation. And that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. What to consider, how to tackle it. There's a lot, but I think we wanted to start with, as we were brainstorming in person this episode.
Yeah.
We felt like there were some themes. So maybe we can talk about the themes first.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of common themes. As we were even just writing out some of the scenarios and questions people might face, we were noticing that a lot of the, like, when we were talking about how we would answer these, a lot of the same themes came up. So it's worth addressing those. One of the things, just to tease what we're going to get into, is in these scenarios, we're going to actually like give some scripts of actual things we would say, which I think are helpful because, we can kind of share like pros and cons and stuff and different points of view. But sometimes I just want to like hear like, okay, tell me what you'd say in that situation.
Yeah, because it's really easy to say, oh, talk openly. Like,
yes.
Set expectations. But sometimes it's good to have a few go-to phrases.
Yes. So on that point, some of the themes are like, when you set, in all these situations, when you can set some expectations up front, it can be helpful in like talking openly and honestly and kindly, even if awkwardly.
Yeah.
Like we'll get into this later, or maybe even on a follow-up episode, but Liz and I are going to share a real life situation
We just had.
that we just had since you've been in Atlanta that was
Yeah.
like, and I even was like, I don't know if awkward's the right word, but like the way I responded maybe came across like a little bit unfinished because it was right off the cuff. It
was
wasn't
interesting.
something-
Yeah. Even
like you say it was interesting.
No, I just think I think it was interesting because you and I are people who have like literally, dedicated some percentage of the bandwidth of our lives to encouraging friends to talk about money. And even still, we had like a little bit of a like, ooh, that felt a little sticky. And let's have a follow up.
Yeah, and unclear. Like I wasn't super clear. You weren't clear what I meant by something. And at the time in the moment, we didn't have a chance to keep talking about it.
Yeah.
But, big teaser. You'll get to hear that specific situation.
Maggie and I had a big fight.
it was not a fight.
I was like, we're done.
Stop it. We don't fight.
I was like, I'm take me back to the airport. I'm going home.
And I was like, no, I'm not going to take you back to the airport. You'll be fine in a little while. No, but I did coin a phrase while we were here that is so accurate. And geez, the amount of times that I have restated this, it's my new motto.
I know.
Can we say it? We could say that word on the podcast,
I
can't we?
think so. But I can't even remember why you said it in the first.
We were in traffic. We were
yeah.
at the exit of like the exit I live off, like when I was picking you up from the airport, and I was talking about someone honking, or I was moving over, and I was like, I'm not trying to be a dick, I'm just confused.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was just confused about what was happening, and I was in
traffic, and that has become like the
it's my
mantra of
motto.
the week.
Yeah. Every time I do something, I'm like, I really like when I say something, I'm like, I wasn't trying to be a dick, I'm just confused about. I wasn't like aware of what's happening around me right now. And I've discovered there's so many situations in my life where I might come across as like not quite a dick, which I don't always like love that word, but not quite that I'm like not being nice. I literally am just like confused and like misread something or like, so
Assuming good intentions is probably also one of the like common themes. Like assume people are not trying to get the better of you or take advantage or...
Yeah, and assume and realize that everyone comes from a different place in their knowledge and like history and their own financial story. And that actually, even in our situation, I was just telling you like kind of where
unpacking our whole childhood.
Yeah, I was like, I could tell you why that response comes from that place.
Yeah,
you know? Yeah. And like, I think in general, every single situation is so different and personal. And like, you need to do your best to read and assess the context clues of what's happening and your relationship with that person, your history with that person, your level of comfort, being honest with that person, and just do your best to work through that situation with good intent, with open and honest communication, respecting everyone's different financial situations and like financial history that you may not even fully know and appreciate. And like, ask questions, be curious, ask for someone, even if you had kind of a funny response. Like I asked Liz what she thought about my response later on, because I was like, I don't know. It was like I was put, on the spot and didn't prepare an answer for that question,
It was fine, to be clear. We're making jokes, but we're
fine, but it is a good, so what a big teaser.
I know.
So, at the end of this episode, we'll share the situation. Or this could be a part 2 episode, so we'll see. Look, we have trouble keeping it tight on an episode when we're, across the whatever. We'll see how this works when we're in the same room.
And we have no other plans today other than to record this episode.
I've got 4 hours until I have to be somewhere, so.
I know, because usually we're also restrained. I would say usually when we record on Zoom or whatever, one of us has something.
Yeah.
One of us has a hard cutoff for one reason or another.
Yeah. Yeah, so I will just put us on a timer, Liz, so we'll see. Okay,
great.
In case you can't tell, now we're going to jump into the meat of the episode, or the tofu of the episode, as I like to say.
The gooey center.
The gooey center. Are you thinking about the chocolate chip cookie discussion?
Yeah.
Oh, donuts. I'm going to take... There's such a good vegan donut place.
Ooh, okay.
Oh, we got to get you guys some donuts.
I love vegan. I almost brought you some donuts from home just as like a...
But
I didn't want to carry them on the plane, so
yeah.
Just so you know.
Here's some donuts that have all of the germs planes on them. All of the planes germs on them.
Oh, yeah.
Said that backwards.
Yeah. Well, they would have been in a box. But...
Yeah. I left it open on the plane just so it could like really... I don't know why I picture like a donut, like a Petri dish. Like it just feels absorbent. Like it would, like everything would glom onto it.
Okay.
Okay.
Focus.
Yeah, I know. She, oh my gosh. I'm not a dick. I'm just confused. What a time to be alive, Liz.
It really is.
What a time. Okay. Here we go.
Okay.
Should we start with work situations?
Yes.
A lot of people go to work. Most people have jobs. That's not true. I don't know.
A lot of people
Let's
have
keep
jobs.
going. Some people have jobs.
Only 50% of the people in this room have jobs.
So
Let's start with, I love because I feel like we're really fresh with a lot of content because we just chatted with a bunch of money nerds yesterday.
Yeah.
And then we
we
all
had dinner with Andrew.
hung out. Yeah. So it was
Yeah.
like me and Maggie and Greg and Andrew and my partner all went out to dinner
Yeah.
too. And of course, because of we are who we are, we kept talking about money and other financial
Yeah.
situations all night. And one of the things that came up was Girl Scout cookies because it's also that time of year.
Yes. Well, I had to walk by like a 4-year-old yesterday that was like in her Daisy uniform.
She gets younger every time you tell
She
the
was
story.
5 last night, right? She was 5 or 6. I don't know. Not old enough to be a brownie yet.
She was an infant.
She was a Daisy. She was on the street corner right by where...
Born yesterday.
Yeah. But there were 2 of them, by the way, with their parents, and they were just so cute selling Girl Scout cookies.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I can't. I was like, I'm happy to give you money, but I can't accept any cookies. I cannot bring cookies into my life right now. For various reasons I won't get into. And anyways, so we were talking about Girl Scout cookies. And Andrew was even saying like his daughter wanted to come into his work this year, and she kind of has sometimes in the past. I was just at a physical therapy appointment, and one of the and it's a very small area we're in, and one of the physical therapists had her 2 kids in there, and I was like kind of joking that I was trapped in a room with these cute 2 kids that were selling their cookies, and I want to support them, but I also I actually, it's tough at work sometimes too, because it's like when you bought it from your neighbor, then you got, you know, lots of people asking you for cookies. But Andrew I liked Andrew's answer.
Well, I think he was feeling especially cautious about it because he's a boss at work.
And that I think is the sort of context. And that changes
the dynamic.
Yeah, that context is what matters.
Yeah.
Andrew's a boss. If he came in with his kids, he was worried that the people that report to him would feel compelled to buy a cookie. And by the way, Girl Scout cookies, for anyone who used to think they were like $3 a box, then they were
I thought they were $3.
They're $6 a box now.
That's kind of a lot.
Yeah, it's probably in line with inflation, but it's still, you know, it's $6 for a box. I would like to go on the record and say Thin Mints are delicious, well worth $6. But
I like a Thin Mint. I do. I think the shortbreads are my favorite.
You like truffles. That's the short. I'm not a big fan of those.
So
Only
good.
because the Thin Mints are so good. I don't know why you would want something else.
The Thin Mints are I'll eat it. Don't get it twisted. I will still crush a sleeve of Thin Mints.
Yeah.
But I like the shortbreads. I like the peanut butters. I like the what's the coconut ones?
Dositos are the peanut butter. Samoas are the coconut ones.
Wait, are there 2? There's 2 peanut butter ones. One's the chocolate covered peanut butter one.
Oh, tagalongs are
And
the
then
chocolate peanut butter ones. Dositos are the like
the peanut butter sandwich. It's almost like an Oreo, but like
Uh-huh.
it's peanut butter
Yeah.
inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was a Girl Scout. And
was also a
what's
Girl
the
Scout.
one post Girl Scout? Cadet? I became a cadet and then quit. Yeah, I was like a cadet for 5 minutes, and
I
then
think I
like,
only made it to brownies.
Yeah. Well, then you weren't a Girl Scout. You were
Oh.
a brownie. Well, you were a brownie. You were Daisy, brownie, Girl Scout.
Oh.
Girl Scout's an actual level, but it's like part of the Girl Scouts.
I feel like
Did you have a green sash or a brown sash?
No, I only made it to brownies.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I guess
brownie.
I
That's okay.
right. Well,
You're still a budding
childhood memory shattered.
Yeah. Update your resume. Clarify that on your resume.
Anyways, they're really good. Okay, so
Andrew's point was
he had a good way to deal with it.
Yeah, he said I just gave $250 and said don't come to my work, and gave his kids added to her other neighborhood sales and other stuff she would do $250. Now I upped it and said that was actual cookies you bought. You should have given those cookies to your team. That would be a nice thing to do.
I agree. But I think he also said he's done it where like she came into the office, his daughter, and just sat in his office, and he kind of made it known.
No, I suggested that.
Oh, you did?
So in past years, she has come in and she likes to like walk around and like, and that's like, and that's I will say that's a good experience for kids.
Yeah, I agree.
So if I was just like a team member at an office, I don't think there's any shame in doing that. Now, what I suggested to Andrew, which is a little less like in your face, like cold calling sales tactics for kids, is I had a coworker who would always, and he was a senior leader, he would always hang the thing up.
Oh, that's right.
Outside his office, the sign-up sheet, and he had a poster, cute customized poster that his kids had made with like their pictures and all that. And he would just send out a mass email and was like, hey, if you want to buy them, the sign-up sheet's outside my office.
Yeah.
And another suggestion I made is, Andrew, what you could do is like let her come sit in your office for 2 hours if she really wants
And
the
people
experience.
want to drop by. Okay.
Let people know if they want to drop by, she's here, but zero pressure, and like
Yeah.
I could care, But I do think there, even when you say zero pressure, you have to remember, if a lot of people report to you at work, there is always going to be some pressure.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry I gave Andrew credit for your idea. I was really tired. Yesterday was a long day.
It was a long day. Yeah.
But that was like towards the end of, we'd seen family in the morning, and then there was a meetup, and then we went to dinner, and then we went to get dessert. Anyways, I was falling
y'all
asleep.
had a long day.
But did you ever feel any additional pressure? Was that person who did it that way with a poster, were they senior to you at work?
No, they were my peer, and so I never felt any pressure, and I always bought Thin Mints from them. I didn't always. Sometimes my thing is I would buy them from like the first Girl Scout that hit me that year.
Yeah.
So if someone came door to door in my neighborhood, like I'd buy those. I will say though, if my boss's kids were selling them, which they never were, I would have felt a little bit of pressure's the wrong word. I would have just been like, oh, the polite thing for me to do is to buy a couple boxes.
Yeah.
But I also wouldn't. If I couldn't afford it, I wouldn't feel pressure. And that was my own decision. I never felt like anyone was pressuring me. And not to like switch topics, but a similar one is I just think you need to be conscientious of the other people's salaries, and like you generally have an idea of who is above you and below you and makes more or less money than you. Yeah. And I will say there was a situation once where I can't even remember the exact details, so I'm going to be rough here, but it was my boss, and it was and actually I couldn't really even go on record saying that. It was either my boss or someone like at his level, and there was something that had happened to somebody at work, and they were like suggesting people donate to a basically a charitable like GoFundMe. And I and some other people were like, I think that's inappropriate coming from you, because all these people who make significantly less money are going to feel pressure to donate. Yeah. And you're donating like thousands of dollars to this thing. Yeah. And like, that's not some amount I just don't even think we should like, they'll find it and figure it out on their own, and they'll proactively ask, but I don't think we should like proactively push it to people, because I think people will feel pressure. Yeah. And so I just try to be cognizant of people's different like financial situations, honestly, throughout all the scenarios we're going to talk about. Yeah. But I think at work, especially, unfortunately, good or bad, because of, most organizations are somewhat hierarchical. I hate saying that word.
Hierarchical.
Yeah. I don't like, I'm bad at saying it is what I mean. Not that I hate the word. And so I think you generally have an idea of like, what people... Yeah.
I think you're right. You just have to be mindful of the dynamics. The way that you act with your peers is a little bit different than you would act to someone who is your boss or someone who reports to you. Okay, so speaking of that, how do you handle gift giving at work on holiday? Let's go with like Christmas holidays. We talked about this last night too. It's so funny because you like, just if you're listening, you might think like, oh, those co-hosts get together and they talk about this stuff for the podcast, but like, no, we literally had so many of these conversations last night just for fun, sitting at a Whole Foods eating vegan brownies. It was great. So I have a very strict rule about gift giving, and I set the expectation with my team that gifts should only flow down the org chart, and they should never flow up. Meaning, and I have this conversation with my team every year in October and November, and I say, hey, listen, the holidays are coming up. I'm going to have a gift for you, and it's important that gifts only flow down the org chart and not up, so like, please don't give me a gift. And it's for two reasons. One, it's because, again, the dynamics that you were just talking about. Like, I don't want people to give me a gift when it feels uncomfortable that I make more money than they do. Yeah, I generally agree. I'm not sure if I ever clearly set expectations, but that is the way I feel. I think I would always get my team gifts, the people that reported to me. Yeah. I wouldn't go all the way into my organization. My direct reports, which probably ranged from, 4 to 10 over the years. I would spend $50 to $100 on over the years.
to buy them like a gift card or some sort of gift around the holidays with my own money, not something I could expense. And I did not expect nor want, and it would have made me uncomfortable if someone gifted to me. I will say the one exception is like, there are people who like to like make baked goods during the holidays.
I think baked goods are an exception.
You want to give me a loaf of sourdough or you made some muffins, like bring it on.
Yeah.
Not offended. We'll eat them.
Right. Well, I hadn't thought about the other implication of it, but I remember Googling it one year because I was kind of like, wait, is this just a me thing? I think this is a rule across the board. Like gifts only go down, not up. And it's also like an HR issue. So it can create...
It can seem like you're like trying to buy favoritism.
Yeah, like you're trying to bribe your boss by...
I remember my admin a couple times gave me gifts. They were small, but I was always like, I don't want you to, like, it's very nice, like. And
it creates the expectation. I think holidays and work, you kind of have to say, oh, maybe we're gonna do like a Secret Santa thing or something, or I'm gonna have. I literally just now I say I will have gifts for you, and I do not want you to get gifts for me, like.
Yeah.
And I actually try to pull in that HR angle just to sort of reinforce it.
Yeah.
And say like, don't.
Well, I will say I like the layer of setting expectations because I can't recall if I ever did that clearly, but I think it's a good idea, especially if you do it in like a way that matches your personality, a fun way, or a silly way.
Yeah, I'm not like furrowing my eyebrows and shaking my finger. Like, listen.
Yeah, and doing it in advance and say, look, and then even like I would wrap it up again with a joke of like, if you want to write me a poem, go for it, but otherwise, like, I don't want to see, please do not get me anything.
That's a very Maggie way to say it. I like it.
I will say, I remember this happening to me, and I remember this happening to Greg. I didn't know him then, but we talked about it later, and I still have a few of these items randomly in my gift card collection. Mm-hmm. When I got divorced, and when Greg got divorced, it was like, I don't know if we just seemed so sad and falling apart or something.
People got you divorce gifts?
Yeah. Greg's directs got him, like, a whole like gift pack of like things to do with his kids and like tickets to the aquarium and like all this stuff. I still have them. And like, people.
I didn't know that was a thing.
I don't know if it is, and I don't know if I seem particularly like not okay or something. Thought I was kind of pulling it together at work, but and then also like, what about like baby showers and stuff? Like, what if your boss is having a baby? Do you get them? And there's like a baby shower at work. What do you do? There used to be so many parties at work. I forgot about this. And I often was like, oh, what do I do? Like, everyone's having a baby all the time.
I try to steer on my team. I try to steer us away from pooling for a gift. And so often the company will have something, right? Like your company might have a onesie or they do something that they do for everyone. So I worked at a company where we had a standard gift. It was this really cute little red wagon that we got for anybody who was having a baby. And it was so cute. It was because when they were little, you could just put toys in it. Yeah. And then you could put them in it. And then it became like a little walker.
I think that's unique.
Anyways, we had that. But so I try to say like, okay, the company is going to do this. Yeah. And then if you want to, like if you're friends with that person and they have a registry, then you're on your own. But I don't think as a leader or anyone at the company should try to be like, oh, this person's having a baby, let's all pitch in for this gift, or here's their registry. Like if I have an individual relationship with that person such that I want to gift them something, I'll manage that on my own.
Yeah, I think the general answer to that, and I'm just kind of like layering onto what you just said, is you have to use your own judgment based again on your relationship with that person, your financial situation, their financial situation, whatever, all those different elements you want to put in, and then just do it and don't feel bad about it. Just be kind in whatever way. If you decline an invitation and say, hey, so sorry I'm not able to make your baby shower, that's all you need to say, like I hope you have a great time, like whatever. Yeah. And you don't have to address that you didn't get them a gift, if that makes sense.
Fully agree. It is interesting, too, with the workforce becoming more distributed. We had someone on our team who, I feel like a lot of babies born on my team. And so one person who was local, we did a little shower in the office and we decorated a conference room and it was actually really fun. And we played a little game and it had cupcakes and it was a whole thing. And then someone who was a member of our team but was remote and the only person in that location, we did a Zoom thing and we still gathered and I think we played a little game or something, but I was like, oh sorry, we didn't like decorate a conference room or bring cupcakes because...
Were there gifts involved for either of those?
I don't know. There wasn't. It was just for fun.
I probably went to 20 baby showers.
Oh wow.
At work.
Yeah.
There were gifts. There were wedding showers. There were, and it really got.
Were they
like,
at work or were they at? Oh,
No, they were at work. There were. I'm sure there were also those
Yeah.
people had baby showers outside of work.
Yeah.
No, and it was normally that somebody at work was close enough with them to organize a baby shower at work. I wasn't like
Yeah.
organizing them. I don't think I ever organized one. I would get in. I mean, I had a big team at different times with like sometimes 100 people on it, and like
Yeah, that's
lots
a
of
lot of
people are
people.
having babies.
Right.
And it became sometimes I would have to use my judgment because there were some people I was close to and I would buy a gift for, and then there were
Right.
some people where like I would just donate to the pool gift, and then because normally there was like a pool gift and there was like if you want to donate money
Yeah.
you can, or you can bring your own gift, and so somehow I would just kind of use my judgment of like how
Yeah.
close I actually was to that person. But I sometimes felt obligated if they worked on my team to like get them something.
Yeah.
But I think what I'm saying is you don't have to feel
Right.
obligated, you know? Like I would more say like if it's one of your directs versus if it's someone, you know, on your broader team. And again, you know, we're not, I know I said we'd give some specific scripts and things and we will eventually, but in these situations, I think there's just too many factors to give a one size fits all answer to people.
I think we gave a little script about gift giving. If you're the boss, you can say,
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a gift and I don't want you to give me a gift.
But you can write me a poem if you'd like.
But you can write me a poem if you'd like.
I wouldn't
write
even-
that down.
I wouldn't even make a joke about baked goods because then I'd be like, but you can bake me. Because then I'd be like, oh, then they'd all feel some pressure that they have to bake me something. And I was totally kidding.
And I do have someone on my team who's like, well, usually I just bake I bake these little cakes and I bake them for everyone. So can I still give you one of those? And I was like, of course. Yeah, that's fine. Okay.
Let me ask you the most heated work question to wrap this up, okay?
Yeah.
Just to wrap this category up.
Yeah.
What about when a peer coworker comes to you, like you and me work together,
Yeah.
and what if Andrew comes up to you and is like,
How much is Maggie paying
that's
you
what
to
I was
do
going
the
to joke. That was the joke. Is Maggie paying you to produce these awesome podcasts we make together?
I would say yes. Today, Maggie paid me in a bagel and a coffee.
Tea, yeah.
And a tea
Place
and
to
a
stay
water.
in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so in a real W-2 job, let's say.
Yeah.
If your coworker, who let's say it's a peer,
This is a real
friend.
job, Maggie. I
Yeah,
would appreciate
this
if you
is-
didn't
I'm
diminish
sorry, I know.
my contributions here.
You're right. This is our real job. Let's not use ourselves as examples, though. In your other job, if a peer came to you, and let's say you were even like 25 years old.
Yeah.
You know, pretend like
Oh,
can you
that was a long
remember
time
back
ago.
then?
No, I think there were dinosaurs. I rode my dinosaur uphill in the snow.
There were
both
definitely
ways
like
to work.
Blackberries. You remember that? Did you have a Blackberry?
I never had a Blackberry. I went straight to iPhone.
I had a Blackberry. My first job out of school. I was actually responsible in one of my jobs at a school at Home Depot for rolling out Blackberries to the whole executive team. It was one of my like rotational jobs.
Oh, that sounds cool.
So I knew a lot about
I
them.
literally thought you meant the fruit at first.
No,
I
yeah,
was
yeah.
like-
I also like the fruit. It's a nice fruit. And,
Okay.
but it's like Blackberries are dinosaurs, basically.
Okay, so let's say you're
yeah.
25 and your friend Blackberry messages you and is
Blackberry DMs you, Blackberries you, and says,
hey, what's your salary?
How much do you make? I'm concerned I'm not making enough, or like what, or just
Yeah.
says, what's your salary? What would you say to them, Liz?
Oof. Like if that happened today.
Yeah, what's your advice? Let's say that someone on your team comes to you and says, hey, someone
How much
else in
do you
another
make?
team that's in a similar role to me asked how much I make. What would you tell them to say?
Well, that's a good question. It's interesting that you phrase it that way. First of all, let me just point out that your employer can't prevent you from sharing your salary with other people in very narrow situations. But for most of the workforce in the United States, like you are protected and your employer cannot punish you for sharing your salary information.
Even though, I'll clarify, even though your boss or someone in a leadership position may at some point imply to you that it's not a good idea to share your salary or tell you to never do it.
That's illegal
They
for
can't
them to
tell,
do that.
Yeah. Even though they might say, like, in some discussion, there might
Yeah.
be something going on. They might say, like, you should never tell your salary to anyone.
Yeah.
They can't, it's a very important point. You're right. They cannot control, like, you're allowed to tell someone your
Yeah.
salary. Now, whether it's a good idea or not, it can open up a can of worms. And,
Yeah.
like, there's different, you know,
Right.
norms at different companies. There's more transparency and less transparency at some companies.
Yeah, exactly.
But what would you, I know what I would tell them if you need a minute. But I
Yeah.
kind of want you to go first.
I don't know how I would feel if someone else came and asked me. I think I'm a bad example because my company, and you and I were just talking about this the other day, we've had so many money. I'm just realizing how much we've talked about money in the last.
What's funny is we talk about a lot of other things. Not like
We
we've
do
only
talk about a lot of
money.
other things, but you and I were just talking about this on Friday, I think, that my company is actually pretty
transparent
and so
structured.
and structured. So we share what like the market, like I know what my compa ratio is, and the compa ratio being, I know where I sit in the market. Like I know that my company has gone out into the market and pulled a data range from like a reputable source and said, this is where you sit in the range for your job. So it's a little bit.
And I know that my company had that data, but did not share it with people.
Yeah.
So I knew it for my team, but
Right.
I didn't even know it for myself. And I've asked at times, and you do not get told that unless maybe perhaps you're like.
So I think if someone asked me at work, I would probably share what my compa ratio is, which is it's a percentage, right?
Yeah.
So it means like if you're at 100% compa ratio, that means you're paid like the exact median, 50th percentile for the salary. I don't even remember what my compa ratio is, but I'm sure I could look it up.
Oh, I want to know. Offline, tell me.
So I literally don't. It's
well, that's one tactic is just act like you don't know, like you're doing right now.
Yeah. I'm
know
not
you
acting.
know.
I'm not acting. I don't remember
Like
the
you don't
exact
know
ratio. I know I'm
I'm
near the 100. I know it's like a little bit above or a little bit below 100. I'm not super high and I'm not super low.
Okay, you're right.
And so
you're right in the middle.
if someone asked me, I would say like, oh, well, I feel like I'm paid right around market rate for my job. So I feel good about that. And I would probably turn around on them and be like, oh, why do you think that you're paid low? Like, what's been the history? What's on your mind?
So
what would you say? You seem very confident.
No,
here.
I'm not necessarily. I just have like it in my head. We could do an entire episode on just this topic alone.
I was literally looking at the clock and I was like, we could almost like re-record the intro and just be like, this is about workplace.
I will. So again, my answer on what I think discussing your salary and compensation in general is a very slippery slope. And my general guidance to someone would be, do it with someone when you feel a immense amount of trust in that person and that you have a bit of context on why they're asking.
Yeah.
And just know that you could be opening up a can of worms and you could create a situation where you now feel really bad about something. And also know it is very tough to go to your boss or HR. Not impossible, and sometimes it can be the reasoning, but I know it doesn't look good if the reason you go to your boss or HR asking for a raise is because so-and-so makes more than you. It's
a hard thing to do because I think when you go in with that of like, hey, this person is paid more than me, it's hard for your boss or whoever's in charge of the compensation to not feel like you're accusing them of being unfair or...
It also doesn't make you look good, quite honestly. And I'll tell again, this could be a whole episode, but like, if that's your rationale for why... There's a lot of reasons people get paid different amounts of money.
Right.
From skill set to how good they are at their job, how long they've been doing their job, where they came from. And like sometimes I had certain people where it's like, we had to pay a premium to get this person over from this company or whatever. And that...
Right. How the market was when you were in the job market, like during, the Great Resignation when it was harder to hire people.
Yeah. Like good or bad, it sucks sometimes, but there's some disparity in pay.
Yeah.
And again, this could be an entire episode. So like, we're only going to go so far down this rabbit hole. Mm-hmm. But I would say you as an employee don't look great when that's your rationale. I'm not saying don't know that in the back of your head that so-and-so makes more. And if you've now like looked at their experience and all these other things and you think there's a reason, you come in with some tangible reasons for why you should make more money.
Yeah.
When you come in and ask for more money, which again, I actually really want to do an episode with you in particular on how to ask for a raise. I think it's a great topic. We did one on Friends on Fire once, I think. And I have so many thoughts on like how to do it well. And I think you do too. So I think it'll be a fun episode. But
although again, I don't feel like I've been that good at it in my life and I feel like, what's the right Disney princess? Snow White or Cinderella? I just feel like I've had birds tripping around my head in the morning because I just feel like I've been paid fairly a lot of my life. And I haven't had to do a lot of advocating for myself.
I haven't necessarily done a lot of advocating for myself. I more have but I have at times, and I have very strong and reasoned views on how to do this right. And that's why my point is, and I
understand what you're getting at.
It doesn't look good if that's what you come to the table with of like,
it should be
John makes more money than me.
Yeah. it should be a business decision. Like, here's where I'm bringing value,
Yeah,
or like,
I
here's
feel
what
like
I'm worth in the market.
Yeah, I feel like I'm underpaid in the market. I feel like, I've been doing this job for X amount of time. My performance reviews are really strong. Blah, blah. I think I'm below market rate. I'd love to have a discussion, like all these things. So the point on etiquette of like discussing salaries and stuff with your employers is just be careful and be cautious.
But wait,
and have a reason.
You said that you knew exactly what you would say if someone came to you. So what would you say? If I'm another VP, SVP of something, blah, 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 at the company, I say, Maggie, I don't know if I'm being paid fairly. How much are you being paid? What would you say? Okay.
I actually meant I have a really good idea of like the factors I would.
Oh,
but sorry,
no. You had this great response.
I think at some point I did. I would say, so it's weird. The like etiquette at my company is like we didn't discuss things like that. Not at a peer level. We would discuss benefits and other things, but like I would say I would ask some questions, and it would depend on who they are, if I trust them. If I felt like I would kind of want to know, like, what's going on? What makes you want to know this? Like, and if I felt like there was a rational reason and we were both going to tell each other and it was someone I trusted, there's a lot of peers at work I would have told my salary to. No one ever asked me.
I do have a good way I don't have a good response if you get asked, but I have a good way to ask.
Okay.
That I heard on another podcast that is called...
Wait, you listen to other podcasts? Isn't it called Inside Out Money?
Oh, no. It was called, oh my gosh, it's from Marketplace. It's about, I know their tagline, it's about money and the way life messes with it. And it's called This Is Uncomfortable.
I like that podcast. That's a good name for a podcast also.
Yeah. Okay, so on This Is Uncomfortable, they talked about a way to ask your coworkers, and it's just to give them a number and then ask them if they're above or below.
Oh.
So you would say, so in this, the example they kept giving was like, oh, do you make above or below 80K? And then that was the way. And then, so this person being interviewed on the podcast asked someone, and he was like, above, way above. And then like, that's how she was like, oh, okay, well then.
Yeah. And I feel like, but when that person's saying 80K, I'm like, well, you probably make 80K if that's the anchor you're including. But it's a less direct way.
If someone asked me what my salary was and they've said, is it above or below X amount, I would probably feel more comfortable answering than I would like, what's your exact salary?
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, back to the, like, I said I had an exact answer. I wouldn't just rattle off a number to some random person to ask me.
Yeah.
I would want a little more context. And if we don't have the type of relationship where we can have that back and forth, I'd probably be like, I don't know, I just don't really feel comfortable disclosing my salary. Like, is there something else you want to talk about? I'm happy to chat.
I think what I would say is, oh my gosh, that's such a good question. It's like such an important thing to talk about. Tell me what's on your mind. Like, what's going on? Because it depends, right? If they're like, oh, I think I'm paid less and I want to know the data, or if they're thinking about accepting another job. Because the thing is unless they have a very similar job to mine, knowing how much money I make probably doesn't help them anyways. But if we do have a similar job, then...
Well, I think you would... It's
in this example, you're assuming it's like we're both.
I did go ask AI what to do. Because again, I just sometimes think it's like...
What'd he say?
She said... Why'd you go for he?
Well,
I think AI is a girl.
I think I've told you this, but we tend to make all of our AI assistants, we tend to gender them as women. And it's because we feel more comfortable asking a woman to do things for us or for help. That like Siri, Alexa,
that's so
whatever the Microsoft one is. I can't remember. And so I actually changed my Siri to a man's voice just to sort of be a little...
That is very interesting.
What can I add? Hey Siri, what time is it?
It's 1:41 p.m.
Oh, he sounds nice.
Yeah, he kind of sounds like a little bit like Sam Sanders from NPR.
So Siri said, ChatGPT said, be honest, if you're comfortable, you just simply tell them your salary. However, it's important to gauge whether this conversation is appropriate for your workplace. Deflect politely. If you prefer not to share, you could politely redirect the conversation. You might say something like, I prefer not to discuss my salary, or I'm not really comfortable sharing that information. Ask why. Sometimes it can help to ask why they're asking. If it's related to another job offer negotiation, it might make sense to have the conversation. If it's out of curiosity, it can help you assess if the question is coming from a good place. And again, I really would have trouble just saying it without contextually understanding, more about where they're coming from.
Yeah. Do you know what's interesting, though? I wonder if you feel the same way. I always feel more comfortable talking about what my salary used to be. Like, I don't mind saying, like, oh, 10 years ago I had this job and I started here and then I got a raise and I started. But for some reason that feels a lot more comfortable than current.
I think that's true. I think, yeah. Look, there's probably more workplace situations, but those, I think those are some of the more common sticky situations you might get into with financial stuff at work. So I hope that was helpful.
I hope it was helpful and entertaining to listen to us just sort of flounder and be like, ooh, that is sticky.
So now we're going to talk about kids for a moment. And
yeah, I have a lot of expertise here.
For those that don't know, Liz does not have any kids.
Just kidding. I don't have any kids.
And for those who still don't know where they're at, I do have kids. I have one that I made, birthed, cooked up, and two that I am a stepmother to and spend, a lot of time with and have been with since they were very little. So I like to say I have 3 kids, but I like to clarify I only made one of them.
You want to share credit.
Yeah. Shared credit on the other 2. And I, as my kids have gotten older, frequently find myself in some situations where it's a little sticky, and like, I, again, go back to all the things we talked about at the very beginning of like, I have to just, sometimes set expectations and like use my own judgment in those situations. But I think it's worth talking through a few. And actually last night at dinner, Andrew, who does have 2 kids, co-host Andrew, gave his point of view. What he when I was like, oh, I really struggle with some of these situations.
He was very decisive.
He was very decisive. As he
like, I know exactly what to do.
As he typically is. He way more like not get caught up in his head about some of these situations like I would. But let me lay out the types of situations, and I'll give some examples. But this is a general theme as your kids get older, especially of like, here's an example, right? We have like a carpool for volleyball, right? And we do a lot of the driving to volleyball, and other parents sometimes are picking up. And those other parents happen to be parents who tend to get the kids dinner on their way home, which is not what we do. When we pick up kids from volleyball, we come home and then we like cook them food at home. And every now and then they might get a treat on their way home or something. But like, we have volleyball practice like 3 or 4 nights a week. So we're not like eating out every, that would get exhausting and expensive. And just in general, we don't eat out as much as a family as many other families perhaps do. And so the sticky situation is, when somebody chooses to go do something that I wouldn't have chosen to do, that I wouldn't, again, the deal is you're just supposed to bring my kid home, not take them to get food. I'm like, oh, am I supposed to like offer to pay them back? In one situation with a new carpool parent, I said like, hey, can I Venmo you some money for like getting her Chick-fil-A? And she was very nice and was like, nope, my treat. It was my decision. And I was like, that's the right answer. Like in my case, I think I did the right thing, which was offered to pay. Yeah. If they felt put out by that, like, I don't know what happened in the car with my kid asked to go to, I don't think my kid asked to go to Chick-fil-A, but I'm sure once my kid was offered, she was like ready to roll with her order. Sure.
Kate wasn't like, listen, when I go home, my mom's going to make me eat lentils. Can we stop at Chick-fil-A?
But she has awkwardly called me from the car before and been like, is there dinner at home? And I'm like, what do you mean? There's always like food, like, like she's trying to like itch for a meal or something. Anyways, but there's many situations where another parent, like my kid's hanging out with one of their friends and they're like, oh, we're going to go out to dinner. Is that okay? And I'm like, oh yeah. Like the kid normally it's my kid asking me, can I go out to dinner with them? And I'm always like, oh, should I kick them some money? Like I didn't choose to go out to dinner. Yeah. And that was where Andrew was very definitive. And do you remember the words he used?
He said the decision maker pays.
Yes. So his point was like, that other family decided to go out to dinner. They knew your child was with them. Yeah. And like, they're in charge of, paying for your kid to eat dinner now. Yeah. And I mean, I think my kids are polite enough to know that they don't like order a bunch of extra stuff. Yeah. And like, I liked the definitiveness of Andrew's message because I at times have been a little bit like, oh, should I, because that's kind of what I do. Like if another kid is with me, I'll decide if I'm going to take my kids out because I'm like, well, I have an extra kid I have to feed or an extra couple kids with us. And so,
yeah, his point was decision maker pays. And then the other example he gave was, hey, Matt, if he said, hey, Maggie, we're going on vacation. Like, I would love to bring one of your kids along with us. Yeah. And you said yes. Then like you were the decision maker in that case. So you pay.
Yeah. And so I've had a lot of I don't think Andrew's kids are too young for this, but I've had a lot of situations where we are going out of town, renting a place, taking our kids' friends with us. They each get to invite a friend. And many situations where my kid has been invited to go on a trip with someone else. It's incredibly common. I've actually read parenting books where they're like, it's really important. And like, you should let your kid bring friends and they should get to go. And it's a great way to like, you being able to like interact with your kid and their friends is an important part of their like, you shouldn't, you know, even though you think that's like time away from you, like that's actually like a really important developmental thing and like an important thing to like allow and be a part of. Anyways, so my guidance on this has always been like, yeah, if I'm inviting my kids to bring a friend, I'm paying for the place. I'm not like...
Yeah. You're going to like split the Airbnb with the other parents.
But it's situational. So I've invited people to come and there are parents who have said like, hey, can I kick in some money? And I've said like, nope, I'm treating, but you're welcome to send them with some extra spending money for if they want to buy something or if when we go out or something. But...
What do you mean when you say if you go out?
I mean, like, if the kids all say we want to go to Starbucks, that they have their, or if we are like walking through, we're in a cabin in the woods, but like there's a little downtown area. If the kids decide they want to buy candy or they want to buy something, that they have some spending money.
But not if if you all went out for dinner as part of this vacation.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Now we typically would buy a bunch of groceries and like, and I'm going to buy those groceries and like, I'm not asking them to chip in because I've decided to ask my friends to invite someone. Now on the flip side, I've had kids go on trips with other people and I know that money's tight for that particular person. And even like there was a flying trip and like there was like, well, they bought their own ticket, and so I think it is just super situational. Again, like I'm renting a house, I'm not necessarily renting a larger house because we're bringing a few more kids along. They're all just kind of sleeping where they want to.
Just throw them in a corner.
They're just
it sounds like the right thing to do here, and again, as a child-free person, tell me if I'm wrong. I still
relate to these scenarios, but
it seems like if you're inviting them, one, I'm assuming you ask the parent before you just.
Oh yeah.
Like it's like, and so you would pitch it to the parent as, hey, we're going to wherever, and we want to bring, Kate wanted to invite Susie.
Yeah.
Here would be the, well, we have room in the Airbnb. You would just need to cover her plane ticket and send spending money.
Yeah, I would set the expectations.
Like you would set that up front is the right way to do it, even probably before waiting for them to offer or ask or something.
Yes, and I think that's incredible. That's a great point, which is why I say you don't need kids to have something to contribute to this. That is a great point. Yes, I would very clearly set expectations. And I have invited kids and said, hey, I've said what the financial impact would be up front, which is like, we're going to get a bunch of groceries, like no need, like all they would need to do is bring some extra spending money with them. So I just try to, again, just like I would be in work, I do try, whether right or wrong, I do try to be cognizant of someone's financial situation. So you don't always know somebody's, but I do happen to be someone who talks about money. And so it tends to open up other people to talk about money with me. So I sometimes have a decent sense from, again, sometimes it's observational, but like how someone, my kids' friends' parents might be doing financially. And like, I know someone who just lost their job. You tend to know things. And so there's even times that I would really insist, like, nope, this is my treat. I would like to do this and I can afford to do it. And like, and I don't say it that way, but I would say like, it's my treat. We're inviting her. I'd love to do it. And then also we've now had, kids with friends for a while where like, my kids have been on trips with their family. They've been on trips with our family. And I'm even more likely to be like, nope, this is on me. You guys have taken my kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think some of it is be aware of how reciprocal you're being also. So if, someone else refused money from you, then I would be like, I would really set expectations up front to be like, I really appreciate you doing last year's trip. And like, we're happy to treat and please let us.
It's individual. Well, it's
contextual. You gotta just like read the room and like know all the details of that situation.
And on the flip side, let's say someone took one of your kids to get food on the way home and you said, oh, hey, do you want me to kick in? And they said, oh yeah, I think hers was $8 or something. Yeah. Then like I guess that would set the precedent that you would want to do that moving forward. Well,
it would. But I also could say what I would do in that case. And again, if this happened like on the regular, I would eventually say something. But in that case, if that $8 was a big deal for me and I was like, I don't want this to happen every week for the rest of the season, I would say, I would send the $8 because I
course.
asked and
Yeah,
offered.
yeah.
And then I would say, hey, in the future, like, we're really, like, we're trying to eat out less. Like,
Yeah.
would you just mind, like, not, you know, and I might even tell my kid, like, don't let her, buy, you know,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
just please say you don't want anything or whatever.
Yeah.
Which is also tough to, like, you know, get
Yeah.
a kid in the middle of it.
That's tricky.
But I do think at some point, you know, the whole spirit of, like, what started this podcast and Friends on Fire in the very beginning was I want people to feel comfortable talking a little bit more openly about money. And yeah, it might be a little bit awkward and, you know, I'm trying to think of another word for awkward, but like sticky at times.
Uncomfortable,
But
yeah.
Yeah, uncomfortable. But my advice is do it. Because if you start the like olive branch of we can have these conversations, I think someone else is going to continue it and pick it up back to you.
That makes sense.
And then the next time I'm with that mom, like I would feel comfortable saying, hey, you know, it was so nice of you to do. And like, sorry, we just kind of don't eat out a lot. And we're like, you know, whatever. But I also, the next time they went, they didn't like, they dropped my kid off first and then went to go get, you know, food.
Yeah,
and like,
yeah.
that's fine.
That would be fine too,
yeah,
right?
I'm totally fine with that, right?
Yeah. I think it just brings up too, it's worth mentioning that you and I are approaching all of these conversations from a place where the sticky part for the most part is the conversation and the etiquette and the relationship. And most of the time we're not in a situation where the actual dollars are impactful to you and me.
Yeah, it's
specifically.
funny. I thought you were going to say like, yeah, a place of some, you know, pretty extreme privilege. And yes, I more have my own, budget's the wrong word, but like, yeah, I'm trying to spend a little bit less eating out. And like I monitor that. But you're right. Ultimately, like that $8 is not going to make or break me.
Right.
And for some people, and that's why I say like, I'm super cognizant with other people. If I know it is a big deal to them, I'm even more upfront about wanting to make sure that my kid's not costing them extra money and that, you know, like, and so I do think people need to be really careful and aware of that, because even though that may not be, you may be the person where it's not a lot of money to you and it's no big deal and you don't stress about that stuff, or you may be the person where that stuff causes extreme anxiety. And in the situation that you and I were talking about, which we'll share later,
our mysterious fight.
Honestly, later is going to be on a future episode at this point.
7 episodes later.
Like in 3 weeks. But a little bit of it was my own hang-ups of like some, you know, things I have, but yeah, I think that's a great point. And we need to all be a little bit more aware and like assuming good intent again. And like, recognizing that what might feel awkward from someone else might actually be coming from a place of like extreme financial insecurity and anxiety. And, like,
and you
literally
don't know
not having the money.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we you know, we can get a sense of what other people's financial situations are, but it is hard to know completely. And I think, I'm trying to think too, if there's, I haven't spent a lot of my life in a situation where I needed to be more careful with money. There have certainly been a lot of situations where I wanted to be more careful with money. There was a time my partner went back to school, and so we were down to one income. We were still pretty comfortable, but it was tighter for sure. Like I paused my 401k contributions for 6 months, and that's, and you know, for better or for worse, about as tight as things have been in my life. But we were, you know, this might surprise you, but I was like being careful about what I put in the grocery cart.
No,
I was.
Come a long way.
Yeah. And I think there are some ways too to bring that up. If you don't want to pay the $8 to send your kid to Chick-fil-A, it's also completely fine to say, hey, that's not in our budget right now. Like, oh, thank you so much for making sure that she got dinner on the way home. In the future, I think I just need to stick to eating at home where we don't have eating out in the budget right now.
Yeah. Money's a little, you say whatever you want, right?
Yeah. I think it's not in the budget right now as a go-to phrase. I think referring to another goal sometimes can be helpful. Be like, oh, we're really trying to pay off our student loan, so we're doing whatever.
We're aggressively paying off our debt. And
we're trying to save up for a new car, so we're trying to trim this budget, right?
Yeah. You know, I think an entire episode could be put against whether people's individual financial situations should be a part of the equation. I strongly believe they should. But
I think
many
it should
people
too.
wouldn't agree with that, I think.
What?
I'm super cognizant of it, and we'll get into some other examples where I'm just cognizant of it, but I think it's a factor, right? And it definitely is a factor in when I go above and beyond to like offer versus not. And again, I am making, in some cases I have real information. In some cases I'm making assumptions based on the outward appearances of how somebody lives their life, which isn't, often is not accurate. Either way, it's how they're outwardly living their life. And so, but it's not the number one factor to me. It is a factor. There have been situations where I insist upon paying and others where I'm like, okay, that's fine. Like, I wouldn't let you bought us dinner the first night you were in town. If I knew you were in like a bunch of debt and that was stressful, I would never have accepted that from you. I would have fucking knocked that. I mean, you guys were real quick. You had like that, and that waiter seemed like he was in on it with you. Matthew? Jeez, Matthew. But there's times when I have like knocked people over to get to that check. Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, like, Liz is not going to be like...
Well, you gave us a place to stay for our whole stay.
And I also was like, you're here for the next few days. I'm going to buy you another dinner. So, like, I'm going to make up for this, you know? Yeah. So, I think there's just so many... But there's times when I would not have allowed that from somebody. Yeah. There are situations where I would not have allowed that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would consider us to be on the same financial footing. Yeah. Even though I know that you have a lot more money than I do, but I have a current income.
That's true. No, and I that is true. And I think about stuff like that. I think like, oh, I don't have a job, you know, but like, I need to live off of all the money I have. You're still making money. But I don't know. You might decide to retire in a year. Yeah. Know? But yeah, it's a factor. Okay. Last kids topic. Okay. Because we could do, Greg and I recently did a whole episode on kids stuff.
I like it when you and Greg talk about kid stuff. Yeah? I don't know why, but do you ever just notice that you just get totally sucked into stuff that has nothing to do with you? Like, I love listening to you and Greg talk about doing stuff with your kids, even though I don't have kids and it doesn't matter. Cute. We talk about Begin at Home, Nicole, all the time, and she talks about, she's a stay-at-home mom, and she talks about her cleaning schedule for her house, which has zero, relatability to my life.
It's highly relatable to me. I love it.
I'm not a stay-at-home person. I hire cleaners. I don't have kids, but I'm like, so you do the bathrooms on Fridays?
No, and then she does the bathrooms on Thursdays, actually. Get it straight, Liz. She just posted that. That's why I know that. Because I was like, I wish I had a day for the bathrooms. She cleans the
downstairs on Friday. You're right. Yeah. But I just think it's fascinating. I can't get enough. Cooking, I follow, what is it? Something with Sarita. She does all these amazing Mexican recipes.
But it's like you're never going to
that I'm never going to make. And I can't get enough. I'm like, oh, wait. Okay. You muddle the cucumber? Okay. Like,
you're like, I don't own anything for muddling, but someday I might.
I could muddle.
Okay. Look at you getting us off track. Okay. So... final kids thing, because my role is to keep us on track and like, you know,
it's the blind leading the blind.
So final kids, again, so much kids things. We'll put, Greg and I did that's how we got here. Greg and I did a recent.
Can you say the blind? I'm sorry if that's an offensive thing to say.
You think it's
the blind leading the blind, and then
it's probably offensive to blind people.
Shoot. Okay, I'm sorry.
We're going to leave that in.
I know, but I just apologize. Sometimes I say things because they're common phrases, and then I've lately been on a big language kick where I pause and I think, oh, is that?
Well, sometimes I like to clarify, I'm not a dick, I'm just confused. So if that is offensive, I'm sorry on behalf of Liz. Okay, so we were saying how we all got here, by the way, was Greg and I did a recent episode on kids. So go listen to that if you want a whole hour talking about kids. But my final kids example that I often face too is like, it's like a thing for my kids from when they were maybe like 11 or 12, but now they're like 13 and up. Almost every Friday night, all my kids are going out to eat. Can you believe this? With their friends. What? Not with adults. They go to some neighborhood joints. They sometimes want to ride somewhere that's like 5 minutes away. Yeah. And they have dinner plans with their friends. And I've taught them about tipping, just to be clear. I'm nice. They understand how to tip people and why, great. And they're very generous.
Your kids seem like exceptionally just... smart and lovely and well-adjusted.
You haven't even met them yet. You get to meet them tonight.
I know, but
that's nice of you to say.
Every time you talk about them, you share a lot about them.
I like to think we're doing an okay job. They're great kids too. I should say that. It's a little, and I'm not sure. It's a little bit nature versus nurture, but like I think they also came out that way. But they're great kids. Yeah. So they go out to eat with their friends, and there's a lot of times where I'm like, we are not even going to go out to eat as a family tonight, and then they want money to go out to eat with their friends, and I'm like, if I was going to go out to eat as a family. And you know, like, of course it'd be my treat. Yeah, yeah. But, like, I'm, you know, eating cereal for dinner so that you can afford to go eat out with your friends. Or I'm eating beans and rice for dinner, you know? And so I will say, like, you know, when the kids want to go do something like that, a lot of times it's on their dime or they're, you know, taking money out of their savings or they've got money from different things. And so, and sometimes we'll give them money for stuff like that. But sometimes it is like, oh, cool, that's not what we're doing tonight. There's food at our house if you'd like to come eat it. Hashtag we have food at home. And so I think there's just situations where I think a lot of it, again, the theme is like, use your best judgment. I think the answer to like all these etiquette questions is there is no right or wrong answer, right? It's like your own situation, all the different context clues and specifics about that situation. And then you making a judgment call on how you want to, the expectations you want to set with your kids and you know, what that looks like. And and I mean, I've taken kids out, you know, to Starbucks before, and it's like they want to get a few things, and I'm like, nope, everybody's getting one thing.
Yeah,
You guys can all choose. I don't care if you want a drink or a snack or like.
Well, it goes back to like setting expectations, right? Yeah. If they just know that when you take them to Starbucks, they get one thing, then you don't have to worry about it. Yeah,
and they're smart. They know how to make that one thing cost like $9. They'll like get a venti. They're like, I can get a venti, and I'm going to add exclude. Yeah, they can like they can get you a $9 drink if you want.
It's so funny. I don't know. Do you just remember being that old and asking them like, wait, can I get sprinkles? Wait, can I get whipped cream? Wait, can I get...
You're constantly pushing. You're like,
and now you're the decider. Like sometimes
I say all the things I said I'd never say. Like all, you know?
Really?
Oh yeah. All the time. I'm like,
I'm not made of money.
I'm like, there's no money tree outside. Exactly. And I'm like, when I was a kid, I didn't have any of this stuff, guys. And they're like, that sounded really, their comebacks are great. When I was, all the facial products they asked for, I'm like, I never used any of this stuff when I was a kid. And they're like, look at you. That's what they say.
That's awful. You look great.
Thanks. They're kind of like being half fun. Like
yeah.
But then I'm like, when I was a kid, we never had any of this stuff. We didn't get to travel internationally. And they're like, that's really sad for you.
Yeah.
You know, their response is sort of like, I'm like, okay. Like,
yeah, I mean, you don't want to be that person that's like, I didn't get it, so you don't have to have it.
Yeah. No, I'm more just like to remind them that I didn't get it, so you need to appreciate it.
Yeah.
But I am that parent being like, you need to, you need to be thankful for that. You need to seem a little more.
In my day, we got, the Starbucks was at the top of the hill in the snow, one glove.
Yeah. In my day, there was no app to order your Starbucks in advance.
Exactly.
You know? There was no, did we even have Starbucks when I was a kid?
I remember it existed when I was in high school. Because I thought it was really cool, but I didn't want to drink coffee, so I would get a hot chocolate, and then but I would walk around with my Starbucks cup, and I would feel cool. I'm not proud of that, but...
Fun fact, first Starbucks opened, which I've actually been to
It's surprisingly late.
1971 in Pike Place Market.
Oh, really?
Is that late? That was surprisingly early.
I think that's early for me. Maybe I was...
But I think it might have been late when they went, like, national.
Yeah. I wonder when it started to become a chain, but... It's just funny because I remember being a kid and you'd have to ask, right? Like, can I have this? Can I have that? Can I have this? Can I have that? I didn't really get allowance. It was more of a case by case thing. Like, I would have to, ask for each thing. Yeah. But now I go to Starbucks and I'm like, I know whatever I want. And I walk around Target. This is really bad. But I'll see a kid who's having like a meltdown because they want a ball or a toy or something. And I'm like, I could buy anything in the store I want. Being an adult is so great.
And do you like look at that kid in a smug way? Like,
I don't want them to feel bad. I just look at them and I think to myself, like, I could buy that ball if I wanted. I could buy 10 of those balls.
You could buy the ball for that kid if you wanted.
I could. I mean, I wouldn't. That'd be so weird. But
we sound really, really privileged right now.
It's like a $1 ball. It's not like...
It's from the dollar spot. Let's just clarify.
It's just interesting. Okay. I think, when you're a kid, you're like, you don't decide when you go to bed, you don't decide what you eat, and then as an adult, you get to decide everything. It's great.
Okay. We are going to wrap up this discussion with one final category, which is money with friends and family. It's a big category. We're not going to fully do it justice. We're going to try to get through this in a reasonable amount of time. But I do want to tease, we will do some future episodes on financial etiquette of like borrowing things and lending things, borrowing and lending money, things, etc., tipping, some of the other topics we haven't gotten into today will be a future more financial etiquette topics. And we're going to wrap up with some topics around, like back to the Friends episode that we talked about at the very beginning.
Splitting in a dinner check is like a whole...
It's a thing.
It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of opinions.
Yeah. What's your opinion?
I have two opinions. One, you should just talk about it when you start, which you and I actually have not been doing good. I feel like we've eaten out several meals in the last couple of days. I think the right thing to do is to just be like, hey, do you want to just split it down the middle or do you want to get separate checks? Like as you sit down.
Yeah.
Or to get into like fist fights over the checks at the end. That's fun too.
I've had like friends in town where sort of at the beginning, I think some friends recently were actually like, should we just like split all these meals?
Yeah.
And we were all like, yeah, we were all sort of like, we were both drinking. We were both, I tend to take just like the friend scenario, if I'm with a bunch of people and everybody ordered similar things and everybody's drinking and like, all of that, we'll tend to just be like, yeah, let's just split it. But there's times when I can tell, even in my, it's not, like what I ordered was more and I drank and other people weren't. Sometimes I will say like, let's just itemize it real quick if they'll, and I'll come up with like what everybody owes, because I know certain people are going to be like, more or less not wanting to pay for, like someone ordered a really expensive steak and I'm like, I had the veggie plate,
No, I feel like I often end up in a scenario where as a vegetarian, I ordered something that was less than everyone else.
Yeah.
So I always try to make up for it by ordering an extra drink.
It's funny. I will say,
I'm just kidding.
My biggest thing is if you were really friends with those people, you should just talk about it. Like you said at the beginning of the meal, just say like, do we want to split? Sometimes the water will do it for you. They'll be like, is this going to be separate checks? And then we just sort of all look at each other and read each other.
And you're like, yeah.
And I will sort of do a little bit of quick and dirty like mental math in my head. Like that dinner that you bought, I was going to just say we should split it, right? But you got on it faster than I could.
Yeah.
And then the next one, I got on it faster than you could.
Yeah. That's fine.
And I was like, and Andrew was with us and I was like, I don't want to like itemize it. I'm not going to itemize out Andrew's and like he drove all this way and like I'm happy to buy Andrew dinner. And because as we established, nobody's getting paid for this podcast. And so I do think it's just like, if you're friends, just bring it up in ahead of time, or like just, I've been at dinners where we've sat there and had a really quick thing of like, did we about get the same thing? Like, yeah. And then someone will be like, oh, I drank a lot, I'm going to leave the tip.
Yeah. I think leaving the tip is often what I'll do. My general principle is that I would rather pay more than do math.
Yeah, that's a good rule. But also there are many people who wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
You say that because you can afford to pay
No, I'm saying
more.
that's like my preference.
Yeah, yours,
yes. I'm not saying that's like the etiquette rule, but I would just rather do that. But again, when I was in that time where, it was earlier in my career, because at the time I think I was making like 75 or 80K and supporting both of us. And that was, it wasn't tight, but it was different than having two incomes. At that time, and I didn't know how long it was going to be until we went back to having a 2-income household, right? Yeah. And so I was like, hey, like, you're going to stop working. We're going to like take out this loan so you can go back to school. I'm going to be the one working. Like that was probably just the time in my life I was the most conscious about spending. Yeah. And my friends knew that. And I remember a couple times, but I remember this one specific dinner we went out and I ordered like a bowl of soup and a water instead of, like a burger and a beer. And at the end it was like, oh, well, I'll split it evenly. And I was like,
just stressful.
And then a friend of mine said so. She was like, oh, wait, but Liz only had this. Like, that doesn't feel fair. And I was really thankful that someone else said that. So I think it's on the person who maybe ordered more to call it out.
Yeah, I agree.
And to stop, because it's more uncomfortable for the person who ordered less to have to call it out.
And I've called that out before to say like, well, this person didn't drink and, and happened to order like a really tiny meal.
And to your point, it's not that those dollars aren't necessarily, they weren't going to make it or break it, but I was in that place where I was in a mindset of trying to save money. Yeah. Like I was in a mindset of trying to spend less. And so it was important to me.
Which I think it's okay to say too. So if you want an actual script, no matter how much money you have, you could say, hey, we're actually like on a budget challenge right now and we're tracking our spending eating out. So I would really I purposely ordered less because I'm trying to stay under this budget we have to keep this month.
I should have said that.
Just say that, you know, and I know it's not always, the older I get, I will say the older I get, the more comfortable I am saying stuff like this.
Yeah.
But again, if it's good friends and it's even if it's like sort of acquaintances, even more the reason to do it. Because like who you worried about offending, right? Right. And you shouldn't be, here's my biggest thing on etiquette. You should not be offended by saying that. If somebody else, as long as you are paying your fair share, if somebody else is offended in that group and looks down upon you because you said that, that is their problem, not your problem. So you did the right thing and you did the fair thing for you. And just know that, you know, like feel good about that. And you can't always worry about what everybody else is going to think.
Yeah.
And I think you just need to like feel like you approached it in a polite, respectful way. That's probably one of our themes. You can't worry about what everyone else is going to think in all these situations. You have to just feel good that you took a fair, reasonable, assuming good intent approach.
Yeah. Easier, simple, not easy.
Yeah.
Right.
And then next
Easier said
time,
than done.
right, let's say you keep getting invited to these like expensive, fancy dinners that you can't afford right now.
Yeah.
What do you do if someone invites you to some, I've been invited to restaurants where I'm like, I don't want it like that. That is not my place. And that's really expensive and it's beyond what, and I make a judgment call. Like if it's for a close friend's birthday, I'm like, okay, I'm going.
Yeah.
If it's for kind of something like loose, I'm like, yeah, no, I can't make it. Sorry.
I guess if I wanted to go and it was outside of my budget, I think the right thing to say would be, oh, I really want to come. Do you mind if I put myself on a separate check? Because I'm trying to watch the budget.
Yeah. And you can kind of say, I don't know.
You can get there and kind of tell the restaurant ahead, like, hey, I'm just going to order.
Yeah, an appetizer.
Yeah, this appetizer and like one drink, and then that's all I want to.
Yeah.
Do you mind just like checking me out separately?
Yeah.
I think that's smart. Oh my gosh, I went out to breakfast with probably 8 or 10 people, and my friend went up to it was a breakfast cafe, like a pretty casual place, and so she went up to the register to say like, hey, can you just check me out for mine? And then they accidentally charged her, I guess she just didn't notice, the full amount for the whole table. And then it was like a whole do you know what I mean?
Because she paid it and like left and didn't realize
Well,
it.
she was like, oh, I accidentally just paid the whole thing. So then we all had to figure out how to pay her with like cash or Venmo and all the things. And I was like, why did you do that? That was silly.
Annoying. Yeah.
Anyways.
Okay, another scenario for you.
Mm-hmm.
What if you go on a trip and you are like organizing and paying for everything and prepping it. And then, by the way, I love the app Splitwise. Have you ever used it?
No, but I'm familiar.
It's really great. It's free. There's probably a paid version, but I've only used the free version. You can put in everybody. You can put in who paid for what. And like there's times where like only 5 people of our group was at this event because not everyone was in town yet. And so you say who was there and you're splitting it evenly, or you can say like one person had paid 20, and it does all the math for the whole trip.
Like
and
this person put the Airbnb on their credit card. This
and then
person
it tells
put
you
this dinner,
who owes who money.
That's incredible.
And sometimes it's complicated. It's like, well, like you 4 owe this person that much. You don't know any, you paid more. Nobody, you don't owe anybody anything, but here's who owes you money. And it's really cool. It does the like complicated math for trips for you. I'm a big fan of it.
Splitwise.
And it'll
Splitwise,
even like
call us. We are not accepting sponsors.
It'll even like send them reminders through the app too.
Whoa.
If you don't want to do it, if they've opted in for notifications, I guess.
I like that.
Okay, so you organized it. You happen to have like paid for it, whether you use Splitwise or not. And someone owes you $200 for their share of the trip. Everybody's paid. You sent out the first thing saying they owe.
Yeah.
Someone hasn't paid yet.
How long has it been?
2 weeks.
Oof. I would probably agonize over sending a text.
I wouldn't agonize over the first text. I would agonize over the follow. I wouldn't agonize over one reminder of like, hey, I was just doing my annual budgeting and just my monthly budget.
That's
recap.
a good way to frame it. Oh, I was just doing my money date.
Yeah.
And I noticed.
Yeah. Just a friend.
Have this.
I'll even sometimes I would just send a group reminder to everybody or something.
Yeah.
Like just reminding like.
Yeah, that's a good, even to the people who pay. And then you just text them on the side like, I know you already paid. I'm just trying to remind the people who didn't.
Yeah. I did one time on a trip a long time ago, had one person that never paid me. And it wasn't a close friend. And I happen to know that was an expensive trip for them. And it wasn't a lot of money to me. And I just was like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm not going to remind them anymore. Like,
okay.
I think this is a legitimate stress to them and it's not a stress to me.
Right.
But on everything else, like now, like it would be a legitimate that most of my friends would have just forgotten. They would not have done it. So I would just politely remind them and be like, hey, just a reminder.
I think that makes sense. What if you had reminded them 3 times and it had been 3 months and they hadn't paid you?
If it was an amount of money that I just wasn't that big of a deal,
you just let it go.
I'd probably just let it go. One time I
feel like the theme of this episode is like life gets a lot easier if you just like have money and you don't care.
Yeah. I mean, it would maybe always sort of like bother me is the wrong word, but like be in the back of my head. But I had a friend like recently even on something be like, oh, can I wait till I get paid on something? And I was like, yeah, no hurry whatsoever. Like, they eventually did. And like, but I also just, I think I would just let it go.
Can I tell you something I have not let go?
Yeah. Do I owe you money?
No.
Oh, sorry.
Oh my
For a
gosh.
second, I was like, shit, do I owe you money?
Oh my god.
Because you about to confront me live on
What
air.
if I just brought that up on the be like, Maggie, actually
I would be so embarrassed. I'd pay you with interest, but what were you going to tell me?
it's your podcast. You could just edit it out. You wouldn't have to
Yeah.
post it publicly.
Like, the world will never know about this.
It's not the law that anything we record you have to post. You would think it would be because
You do think it's the law, right? People are like, wait a minute, you could edit half of this out?
Okay, so I did a girls trip. This was so long ago. I think this was in my late 20s probably. And the person who organized it paid for almost everything. And then at the end said, okay, here's what you told everyone, like, oh, here's what you owe for
Yeah.
drinks and food and whatever. And it wasn't that much. I want to say it was like a few $100s, but I was also in my 20s. So a few $100s felt like more meaningful
Yeah.
to me than. And so I wrote my friend a check. And she didn't cash it until like a year later and didn't text me like, oh, hey, I'm about to cash this check. Just a heads
Did
up.
she like bounce your account or something?
No, but I feel like it could have.
Yeah. That's funny. I forget about like paper checks and that, you sometimes sort of forget. I've done that before where I've sort of forgotten I had like a check lying around.
Yeah.
You know what I've done when I did that though?
What?
I've told the person. Like I found a
Exactly.
birthday check that someone a family member had given Kate, and I was like, "Oh my god, I feel terrible. So I'm so sorry. I just found this, and like I'm about to deposit it in Kate's account." And
exactly.
It was like a small
Exactly.
amount, but like, but no, I agree. It's not great. Like,
Well, I think the dynamic goes, because I think back at the time, I was in my 20s, so I was making less than $50,000. And I think the person who cashed the check was making significantly more than I was based on their career history versus mine. And so it probably didn't seem like that big of a deal to them to cash a check for that amount.
yeah.
For, let's say it was $300.
Yeah.
But for me, I was like, well, that's like my car payment.
And that could have like bounced your checking account.
Yeah,
if
I mean,
came
it
out at
wouldn't
the
have
wrong
because I'm
time.
pretty responsible. Like I think I always kept like $1,000 as a mental zero, but it still was like an impact. And it's not like I felt like I was getting away with something. I think I had just forgotten that she had never cashed it because I wasn't quite as on top of it then as I am now. But I think that's the right way to do it. I also have a personal rule: you don't cash the check until you've sent a thank you, either a text or a thank you.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's nice. Oh, that's just good like etiquette in general.
Not for a girls trip. That's a little different, obviously, but like for birthday money, Christmas money, that kind of thing.
Okay. One of the last friends and family ones. And again, we're not covering like borrowing stuff, which is a big topic because we're going to do that as a whole separate episode. Like borrowing, lending money, all that. So managing things from trips to portions of rent, etc., based on people's different levels of income. Mm-hmm. So, like handling a financial discrepancy in like a shared living situation or like vacations with friends. Mm-hmm. And like I have seen many situations like this, even from like rental properties where like I know there's a lot of situations where like, they might change the amount of who pays what. It's like if 4 people are living in a house together and it's not like one of my college apartments, everybody's living situation was exactly the same. You had a room and an ensuite bathroom. So we all paid the exact same amount.
That makes sense.
But sometimes you're in a place where
I see, yeah.
There's a significantly like the master
like,
suite
the primary,
has
right,
one
versus
bathroom
the
attached
smaller.
to it, and then 2 other people share a bathroom, and the
Yeah.
rooms are tiny, or
Yeah.
And I think in that situation, it's very expected and normal to say, okay, sometimes there's someone who, I mean, I literally had this one when I was renting a rental house for someone once where major discrepancies in the size and the quality of the living situation in the home. Mm-hmm. And one person had a lot more money and made more money. These were like girls in their 20s, made a lot more money and was like, I'm going to take the master and I'm going to pay $750 a month. And these 2 people are going to share a bathroom and take smaller bedrooms, and they're going to pay $500 a month. And they kind of worked out the amount, and they mixed it with, it was aligned to like the amount of space you got and who made more money, right? Was willing to pay more. One person was very happy to pay more. And I've had situations in planning vacations with friends where, a couple people may be a little bit more on a budget and a little bit more concerned about how much they're just not, they're looking to have a place that's like nice enough, but they're not trying to like stay somewhere extra fancy. And a few of us maybe don't care as much about how much we pay. And we've said, okay, well, some of us are like, we'll talk and say like, I don't mind paying more if we need, if we find a place that's really cool and we like it, we'll just pay more of it.
Yeah.
And not, that doesn't even necessarily mean we'll take the master suite or something. It just means like, we're fine paying more of it.
Taking more in. Yeah, that makes sense.
And I think that's okay. And I don't even know that you need to tell everybody if you're doing that.
Yeah.
You know, like you can or you can't. Doesn't matter.
The roommate, bigger bedroom, smaller bedroom situation reminds me, because we promised some scripting and now I'm like stuck on it that we should.
Oh, yeah.
But it seems like a good scenario for one of my all-time favorite phrases, which is, does that sound right to you? And so you can propose something and say, okay, what if I think we should all split it evenly, even though blah, blah, blah. Or I think we should split it so that the person in the bigger bedroom pays more. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah.
And it's just a really like soft way to say something.
Like, what do you think?
To also say, I'm really open to feedback.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you can say, does that sound right to you? Which I think sounds nice. I also think you say, what do you think about that?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Also, I mean, I say something that feels right to you, but ask a question, propose something, ask a question, and speak up, right? If somebody is suggesting that you all share the same amount of rent and there's massive, disparity in the actual living situation and the, benefits you like, one person has a dedicated bathroom and one person doesn't. Say something or agree that you actually all want the master and are willing to pay for it. And you're going to just draw straws, right?
Yeah,
or you're going to just draw names because you all want it and you're all willing to do it. And agree, hey, we're all going to pay the same amount and we're going to draw and see who gets it. Or we're all willing to pay the higher amount, but we agree it should be a different amount, but we're still going to draw and see who gets that higher, more expensive bedroom.
Right. I
think the thing is, again, if you can't have that conversation with some people you're going to be cohabitating with, you probably shouldn't be living with them. It's a good, it's just, and especially if you're in a relationship with them, you definitely should be able to have that conversation.
I agree.
And it's a good test to like, should you be even...
And a good test and a good way to just set expectations at the beginning. This is how we're going to have these conversations. It makes me think too, going back to, again, that's just like one of my favorite phrases, especially when you're sort of...
Does that sound right?
Accusing, yes. Yeah. When you're not accusing someone of doing something wrong, but I've had a few people at work be like, oh, this is messed up. And then I'm like, that's actually not messed up. You're incorrect because you don't have whatever the up-to-date information. And if they had come to me and said like, hey, this looks like it's wrong. Does that seem right to you? You could do that same with when someone owes you money. Hey, I show that you didn't pay me for that trip. Does that sound right to you? Because it's like opening the door. Oh, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I missed it.
Yeah, that's actually a great way to say it is not, I haven't gotten that money, but like, I'm not sure if it came through. I was just like trying to,
I don't see it on Venmo. Does that seem right?
Yeah. Yeah, just wanted to check in and see, what happened. So yeah, I think it's funny. It's like on so many of this topic is no different than almost every financial topic we talk about, in the sense that we're trying to talk about something that's at a high level, but that in your specific situation, right? Like how you deal with the nuances of, your 401k or your HSA or whatever you're doing, whether you should have an HSA or not, or whether you want a high deductible plan, whatever, is so unique to some other situations and factors in your life. So it's like the answer to all these questions is so unique.
It depends.
Yeah, it depends. And so we're giving you a little bit of like, or a lot of how we would deal with these situations. And it really does just depend.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, I have like a fun one really to wrap up this topic.
Yeah.
Because once again, this is a real life example that just came up with you and me in terms of when you have to Venmo someone for your portion of a bill. Do you pay? Okay, so let's say...
This is like such a little thing though.
I know, but I think
it's interesting.
I think people have strong opinions.
Yeah.
So like, let's say you and I agreed to split something.
Let's say you and I agreed to split the bill for the Inside Out Money meetup bar tab.
Let's just pretend that you and I have a podcast, and let's pretend that we did a meetup, and let's pretend.
By the way, if you missed the meetup, you also missed free drinks.
Exactly, because Maggie and I just opened a tab, and we said that we'd split the bill on whatever the tab ended up being. And so I texted Maggie, and I said, "Hey, what was the total on that tab?" And you said it was $250, and then you sent me a picture of the receipt, which I appreciated because I was curious to see what I was just nosy about what everyone was drinking.
Yeah,
but then
I did too. I literally was like looking at the beers because I was like, oh, I should have tried that beer.
I know. I was like, oh, what's that? I'm just being nosy. But then I noticed that on the actual receipt, the total was $253.80. And so I thought to myself, well, do I send half of $250?
Oh, I actually was like, oh, you sent me too much money because you sent me $127. But I was in my head like, oh, it was only $250. So I was like, she should have sent me $125. But you actually did the exact math and you rounded up.
Well, right. So
Did I just make money? No.
a little, a tiny bit. So half, oh wait, hang on. 253. So I did the math on my phone. So half would have been $126.90.
Oh, you
So
sent me
would
an
you
extra
send $125? Would you send $126.90 or would you send $127?
I've done both. There's time. I mean, first off, I would never round down. I've either round up or sometimes, and I don't even know that it's like thoughtful. I'm just like, someone sends me an exact amount, so I type in the exact amount.
Right.
I think if someone, I don't know, I think it just probably depends like how I'm feeling that day and like if I'm paying attention or if I feel like typing in more decimal points.
Yeah. I considered rounding down to $125. And do you want to know my rationale for that?
Oh, yeah, I know your rationale. I was being very kind at the end of the night. Wait,
Oh,
was this
that's
your- that was the rationale.
No, but you say that.
It had been a long day.
Yeah.
And I know you were tired.
Yeah.
You were sitting down. You look,
Yeah.
you look great, but you were I was tired.
I was
like,
having tons of fun, but
I was having tons of fun, but like
I had to get up early for something else the same
Yeah.
day, and it was
it's a lot of like emotional energy talking to anyone for 3 hours, let alone like new people that I've just met.
I just want to be clear. I wasn't like, I'm tired of
She
this.
was loving it. She was happy.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, Liz's favorite drink is like a lime Spindrift, and they had them at the bar.
Yeah.
And I was like, I could use a water. I need to drink water.
Yeah.
And so I get her one and I bring it over to her and she's like talking to someone else. And I was like, oh, I brought you a little gift. And then she goes, I mean, a gift that I paid half of. And I was like, fair point.
Yeah. Well, I could have, so I could have rounded down on what and you said you were like, all right, you could take $2 off.
I go, yeah, I'll take $2 off what you owe me.
No, but I was thinking because you put it on your card and I paid you for half of it, you got like the airline miles or the credit card
you're
points.
Right.
Or whatever it was. And so I would have felt a little bit justified in rounding down and saving myself $1.90.
Yeah, you're right.
But I rounded up just because I don't know.
Yeah, did you do the mileage, the point mileage?
Did I do the calculation?
The value of those
like,
that 200 and I don't know it. I'm bad with the math. I don't know it. It's only a couple. I
think it's generally like 1%, right? So that would be $2. I think
our point is nobody should think about any of this stuff. We're just screwing around here. If you're thinking about it. I mean, we think about it because we're just like being funny.
Yeah, we're just being.
I don't remember the point. Oh, the rounding up and rounding down.
I just think it's interesting whether you decide to like round down, pay the exact amount, or round up.
Yeah, I think you don't need to think that hard about it. But I think it's interesting. I'm more saying not you. I'm more saying like people out in this world don't.
I agree.
But like if you can swing it round up, it's a nice thing to do.
I agree.
But it's also there's no shame in just paying the exact amount. If someone tells you owe 200, I didn't do the math for you.
Right.
But if I had said you owe 126.50, just send me 126.50.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, that makes sense. If you had told me the amount. And just told me the amount, I would have paid that. But I feel like because you sent me the receipt, I was like, oh, okay, well, let me like get exact here. Yeah. I don't know. I just think it's interesting.
Yeah.
I think everyone this would be the perfect thing if you haven't left us a review to go on and leave a review and be like, by the way, the correct answer. If you don't know what to say in the review, because sometimes it's hard to just be like, I like this podcast. It's cool. Say the correct answer to how to pay someone on Venmo is either round down, round up, or exact amount.
Yeah. Okay, well, last topic. We actually have one more.
Is it our big fight?
No, because they're not going to hear that in this episode. We teased it, and then we don't have time for it because we talk too much.
I'm sorry.
So it's going to be like a couple episodes from now. Oh, right? Gosh.
Okay.
But it's going to be in the borrowing episode, which is so annoying. Coming to a place.
Really sorry. I'm so sorry.
I'm coming to a podcast episode near you soon.
Yeah.
Final one.
Liz and Maggie's big fight.
Is gift giving with friends and family. And we're going to be quick on this one, but like, you gotta like in general set expectations up front. So, you know, when I married Greg, we like talked with, we were like
Yeah.
saying to Greg's mom, like, we don't want anything. Like, you don't need to get us anything. And like, you know, this is like, we'd prefer you not get the kids much and like put a donation into their college fund instead. And we set those expectations. And again, go listen to the kids episode with Greg and I, because we talk about that in more depth.
Well, you and I did an episode about gifts. Too. I feel like you
we
just
did
don't.
we did do an app. What were you going to say?
Do we just do one about gift cards, or was it about gifting?
We did it about gift cards, but we also, we have something about...
You don't like gifts in general. I like gifts.
Gifting is not my love language. Acts of service and words of affirmation are my love language. But if you can figure out the magical riddle of what I actually need at that moment in my life, I don't mind a gift. And I don't mind food. If you ever want to feed me, that's a nice gift. But I just, in general, I'm like, you probably can't read my mind of like what I want.
I know exactly what you need right now. You need another purple hoodie.
I love hoodies. Okay.
Okay. I think you need some new jeans because the ones you were wearing yesterday had holes in them.
A lot of holes. Yeah.
I think you
paid
could afford
for those holes.
Oh, there were on purpose holes.
Those were expensive holes.
I thought you just couldn't afford new clothes.
No,
and
those were expensive.
I'm just teasing you. I thought your jeans were very chic, and I thought you looked really nice.
Thank you very much. You look very nice. Also, your jeans did not have holes in them.
No, but I almost
very adulting of you.
I was running late for the.
I almost wore leggings.
I know. I was like. I'm glad you wore jeans only because I was afraid I was going to look like way too dressed up standing next to you.
I think you were the perfect amount.
Thank you.
I was a little... I mean, I had a t-shirt on.
No, you looked adorable.
It was a black shirt, though. That feels dressy.
I was almost late because I had brought a shirt, a blouse, as it were, to wear to the meetup. And then when I went to put it on, there was a massive hole in the back. Like, huge. It was 3 or 4 inches long.
Well, also could have been, like, that might have been, like, a more expensive version of the shirt. Like, you bought it with the hole. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like
yeah.
jeans.
Maybe that was the style.
Yeah. People have been like, look at that cool shirt with a hole in the back.
Look at, I know. Okay. Yeah, it's funny how jeans are supposed to have holes in them, but that's the only clothes that are supposed to have holes in them.
Yeah. We cannot record a podcast together and stay on topic. Okay.
We need to get Greg in here with like a whistle.
I know. We're talking about gift giving. We're actually bringing this home in case you didn't realize.
We are. It's happening.
Well, like, what if someone gives you, like, some real... Like, what if someone gives you... Like, I'm just not a big gift giver. A lot of me and my friends, we've all established expectations that, like, even when we had kids when we were younger, we established expectations that, like, unless it was, like, a birthday party event where our kids were attending, like, we weren't getting everybody's kids presents on their birthdays every year. Like, this is just get out of hand very quickly. And I just think it's important and appropriate to establish expectations up front. But like, what if someone gets you like a really expensive gift and you're like, whoa, I didn't know we were that kind of friend. You know, like I didn't get you that. Like, like what would you say something or would you just...
I think you and I have different energies when it comes to gifts because if someone got me a really expensive, nice gift, like I'm trying to think if you bought me a very expensive gift for some reason, which would be funny because I don't think that you would do that.
Probably wouldn't.
But what if you...
I did.
Let's say you brought me like... The first thing that came in my head is like, what if you gave me a pair of Lululemon leggings? What if you were like, welcome to Atlanta. I got you a pair of leggings. Yeah. And those are like $140.
Yeah.
I would be surprised, but I think I would just say thank you so much. Like, wow, thanks. I really appreciate that. And then I would probably try to like buy you dinner or something to feel even.
Yeah.
People smarter than I actually really want at some point in my life when I have time, I want to go read the anthropologists or the sociologists or the people who have studied gift giving and how it contributes to relationships and like why I feel like I then need to buy you dinner.
Yeah. Reciprocate that you need to. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think though the answer, if there is a right or wrong answer, which there isn't, is similar to what we've talked about in all these other scenarios. It's just all these factors go into it, right? So if someone bought you a really expensive gift and they can afford to and you can't afford to buy them something like that, don't feel any way obligated to, like, you do not need, gift giving does not have to be, gift giving is a decision by the gift giver. Right. You do not have to reciprocate. You are welcome to if you want to and you feel obliged to. And obliged does not necessarily mean obligated to if you feel like you want to. I think you have permission to, in all these scenarios, make your own decisions and judgment. And like, in the world of etiquette, like, you need to be it's ideal if you're like a kind, nice person, but you do not need to do things a certain way to have, I don't know, to be in this world, if that makes sense. I just want to give people permission for that. Yeah.
I think in this scenario, I like this example because I need some new leggings. I'm like, if you bought me a new pair of leggings, I think that I have to be very thankful, right? Like for any gift, whether it's like an expensive gift or not, I think the correct response is like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. This was so kind. Like, what a generous gift giver you are.
Yeah.
That was so thoughtful of you to think of me. And then if I can afford to, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, now I need to do something really nice for Maggie because she did something really nice for me. But if I don't have a lot of money, I feel like I would also feel perfectly comfortable being like, oh, let me buy you a coffee.
Yeah.
And then I would feel like that was reciprocal because it was a reciprocal sort of from in a, what's the word? The ratio would be right.
Yeah, you did your share of what you could,
Yeah.
Or, or bake something for somebody or make something or whatever your hobby and passion is. Like,
or even just go online and like post something on Instagram. Like, wow, I visited Maggie and she was such a good, which you are, by the way.
Well, no, now I feel like a bad host because I didn't have a branded pair of Lululemon leggings, which I would have never thought to have rating for somebody.
Why would you? That would be so weird.
Hints?
You'd have to like guess the size.
Yeah,
that would be
right.
like so weird. I'm just wearing them right now.
If you saw me like staring at you and being like, I don't know, I'm trying to figure out what size she is. She's like, Maggie won't quit looking at my butt.
How much of the
I'm
couch
trying
do
to
you
figure out
take
what
up?
size leggings you wear. Like, I don't know.
But I feel like I could also, because I already feel like you did a lot. We got here and there were like snacks laid out for us. I meant to tell you too, I loved the sheets on the guest bed. They were so comfortable. I looked at the tag. I was like, I'm going to buy these. Yeah,
they're from Costco.
Bamboo sheets are the best. I think that's great. And so I think just showing that, I don't know what my point is here. I think it's just that you're not obligated to do anything except show appreciation.
Yes.
And the person who did something nice for you, probably all they want is to feel appreciated.
I agree. I totally agree. Okay. On that note, we're going to wrap this up with a teaser that in future episode, we are going to talk about etiquette around borrowing stuff, tipping situations, and this situation that we keep teasing.
I know.
That we got into.
We almost came to blows over.
Yeah, which she's really exaggerating. But
Maybe
not. Maybe not. You'll have to listen and find out. You'll have to leave us a review if you want to hear. If we don't get to our goal of 200 reviews by the 100th episode, we will not share this story.
You.
That is a mild threat, okay, guys?
That's not going to happen.
We may or may not follow through with that.
We will not tell you about the story where we had two extremely polite conversations.
Slightly awkward, very polite. Would you... And hopefully we get to 200 reviews and everybody's happy, right? And we all win.
Your face is so stern right now. Your like
just my
eyebrows
face.
are furrowed. She's wagging her finger at you. We meant to stop at the meetup and be like, all right, everybody bring out your phones. Like, we're going to pick up the bar tab, but before you get your first beer, you have to prove that you left a review.
Right. I want to see that you've... Show me, open your Apple Podcast app.
Yes.
Leave me your phone for a few minutes and walk away.
Okay.
I think we've done this.
I think we did it.
We got past doing it a while ago. we did it. It's fully cooked. It's overcooked, perhaps. Perfectly cooked. Thank you for listening. We know your time is limited and valuable. And if you are still here with us, wow, we appreciate you spending some time with us today. If you've enjoyed this episode, like we said, we would love it if you want to leave us a review. We have one more episode till we get to our 100th episode. And we want to have 200 reviews. And we're at like 180. I checked this morning. 179. Yep.
Hang on, let me look.
So if you want to leave us a written review on Apple Podcasts or a rating on Spotify, that's awesome. We want to get to 200 on the Apple Podcast app. We would really appreciate it. Okay, you're up next.
We're at 179.
I know, yeah.
Whoa.
That's what I just said. Did you hear me?
Well, you said 180.
I said 180, then I said exactly 179.
Weren't we just talking about...
rounding up or down? Yeah.
Well, no, we were talking about people who always have to point out
Being
being pedantic.
wrong.
And I'm sorry, I'm pedantic.
Sorry.
Oh my gosh.
I more sometimes tell people I just said something because normally I say something to Greg and then he like repeats it and he didn't hear me. And I'm like, I just said that, right?
Sorry. I know that's frustrating when people do it, but it's not like I was just
looking
doing
up
something random. I was doing something
review
related.
count. Yeah.
This one, Leaner29 said
This is really nice.
that she listens to Liz Gets Loaded and to Inside Out Money while she's commuting or doing household chores.
Yeah.
Thanks for telling me that.
There were a few. I like that she put what she does because you've suggested that that's something people could leave in their review.
I also just really like knowing what people are doing.
While they listen to podcasts. Yeah, our podcast specifically.
I know. CJ Rocks 2025 said even her 10-year-old likes listening to us.
That's a compliment. I take that.
We try to keep it clean.
Yeah, I did say a curse word. Someone else said, Sajia, I'm not going to try to say that. It said, my favorite personal finance podcast. Marathoner Mama said, I've been listening to Maggie since Friends on Fire. That was great, but I really appreciate the new format and rotating co-host. Fun, interesting, and informative. Thanks for continuing to put on such great content.
These are just some examples of like if you have writer's block and you don't know.
Yeah.
You can also just hit the number of stars. That counts towards the 200.
It does count.
You don't have to write anything.
I love the written ones, but yeah, you could just hit the number of stars.
The written ones are really just for our egos.
Yeah. They make me feel nice.
Yeah. But this podcast is free, so this is how it's, you know how you've saved hours of your life by never having to listen to an ad?
Ads. All we want you to do is take 1 minute of those saved hours and go leave us a review.
Exactly. Just pull up your phone and scroll down and down
And
and
down
down
and around and down.
You can also share this with friends or family to encourage ongoing discussions about money, and you can subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe. That way you don't miss an episode. And if you want to text us, it's really texting Maggie, but sometimes she shares what you text her. If you say something that she thinks the rest of us would be interested in, that phone number is 404-981-3370, or find us on Instagram. You can find Maggie at Inside Out Money, or you can find me at Liz Gets Loaded.
And by the way, shout out to Wendy, who's a listener and fan, and a reminder that, like, if you email me, I may not see it for weeks for various reasons, but if you send a text to that number or hit us up on Instagram, I see it much faster. So I was more just, I feel it took me a while to get back to Wendy's note, and sometimes I've replied to emails like weeks or months later, and I'm a little faster on those other two methods. So just a quick caveat. Okay, we did it.
I think we did it.
Yep, first
High five.
First episode in the same room together, and perhaps our longest episode as a result. Okay, bye Liz, thanks.
Bye.